In Owning the Future, you set up a framing of talking about an extractive economy, extractive capitalism. So we're living in a particular flavor of capitalism that seems to be, hoovering up the wealth of the commons, the wealth of the community, labor, etc., juxtaposed with the idea of a generative or regenerative economy. And you mentioned that in this book, but you also sort of really, in terms of language, come in on this idea of a democratic economy. And we have a bunch of, I'm curious just your reflections on sort of language and how does that connect to a wider conversation? Because we have the new economy, we have solidarity economy, there's a more revived discussion about socialism versus, so I think I'd be curious just what's your mental map as you take that out into the world?
Well, as a journalist, I've been tracking this whole space for about 30 years. And I would say 80% of the work is about language. How do you language this in a way that it makes sense to people, that it's intuitive, that it seems like your own? And I think what many people are trying to do is to language. What is the next economy? How do you name that? Now, so in the book we contrast the extractive economy with the democratic economy. And I'm deliberately avoiding the words capitalism and socialism. I think that those are very limiting. Those are 19th century constructs. And we are trapped for some reason in this idea that we have a binary choice, right? It's either corporate capitalism or it's state socialism, and those are the choices. And so I think when young people, when many young people say they're socialists, what they're saying is, I definitely don't want capitalism, right? And I think that that's right. Now, I do think that socialism is a word that might fly in Europe more than here. I know Jeremy Corbyn is using it in the UK, and he could well be the next prime minister.
Inshallah. Yeah.
Maybe so. And he uses that word. He also uses the word democratic economy, which is he uses both of those. I personally think that when you use the word socialism, you basically have hung a sign on your back and said, "Kick me," in this country. Really, it's just not gonna fly in the U.S. I don't think. I think some of the concepts are great. I mean, we talk in the book about publicly owned banks. I mean, a lot of socialism is about public ownership, and one of the models I love to point out is Bank of North Dakota. It's been around 100 years. It's owned by the people of that state. Do people know Bank of North Dakota? A few people do. Its purpose is to serve the people of the state. I mean, what a remarkable thing, right? Its purpose is not to extract money from them. And so because this bank exists, there are 5 times as many locally owned banks in North Dakota per capita as in any other state. And these banks actually lend to local businesses, which the big banks have basically gotten out of the business of. I was having a talk with Kat Taylor recently, who's the CEO of Beneficial State Bank, and she showed me some statistics. She said the 5 or 6 big banks are basically all hedge funds now. They're doing very little actual lending. Maybe 10% of what they're doing is actual lending into the real economy. They're doing derivatives and trading and all kinds of crazy stuff. But locally owned banks, now they are supported by the Bank of North Dakota, and because there are more of these, that state weathered the 2008 downturn better than just about any state. And it's created a movement. We actually have somebody here tonight from, so it's the public banking, Hub Public Banking, is that the name of it?
Well, we've gotten out of Hub, we're now working at the state level. We call ourselves the Mass Public Banking Group. We're sort of a Melking.
Mass Public Banking Group.
Yeah, and our website is masspublicbanking.org.
A good thing to know about. There's a movement around the country now for state and city-owned banks. The new governor of California was elected partly on a platform calling for a state-owned bank. So my point, so just to finish up the socialism point, so public ownership is sometimes appropriate. I think that's right. But there also are other forms of private private business that can also be socially responsible, like B Corps and employee ownership, which I think is not part of the socialism frame.